Please welcome Arsen Babayan, the CTO of Bank, with Cheat Sheet to Greatness. Arsen Can, the floor is yours. Hello again.
So, first of all, what a great event. Really world-class and really proud to have the stage today. Anajan, I've done your bidding. There's a title slide, and from this moment on, let's get there. Okay, so I'm Arsen Babayan, and before being a technology leader who's obsessed over software and quarterly reports, I used to be a child who was obsessed with just one thing: history. History not in terms of dates or battles. I was obsessed with history of great people. Political leaders, generals, philosophers, scientists, people who actually got to the heights in their respective domains and were able to alter the landscape by the sheer force of their minds. I realized that in succeeding, it was not due to their pure genius, but actually their system of thinking, which really transcended the domain in which they were specializing. I also realized that the recipe to greatness in one domain almost always is a cheat sheet for another domain. This brings us to another obsession of mine, the pure mental engagement, which is the game of chess. Think of it. In the ever-changing world with infinite variables, markets, geopolitics, technological advancements, society, chess is the closed system of perfect information. There is no hidden data. There is no element of luck. It's the pure intellectual battle. And there have been a lot of people in the history who have been good in this intellectual battle. But to be really the best, there was one thing that you needed to do. You needed to be better than every human being on the planet. You needed to excel in every aspect of the game in order to become and stay the world's #1. That is why the chess champions, the world chess champions, the individuals who held this undisputed title are a very relevant source for greatness for us to study. They did not simply play the game, they redefined it. They actually pursued the truth over the board, and they are a perfect example of greatness that the history can offer. Today, we are going to follow this historical thread. We will first begin in the early and romantical days of chess, where the game was defined by dashing attacks, beautiful sacrifices, aggressive, even if unsound gameplay. The masters of the game at that time were brilliant and imaginative. But there was one man who did not actually fit the setup in his creativity, in his talent. Let's actually put it that way. But what he did, he actually brought science into the game. He did not rely on creativity, he relied on logic when competing. His name was Wilhelm Steinitz. He brought cold, hard, logical principles to the game board and competed in a positional play. What signifies his style is that he couldn't actually compete against his contemporaries on their own perch, so he actually changed the rules of the game. What does this mean for us? In business, we need to actually remember that the disruptor, the ultimate disruptor, is not who is innovating within the industry, but who is redefining the industry itself. And if your company is looking to bring some novelties, you'd better look at how Steinitz used to win. He didn't invent some opening line, or he didn't discover a tactical blow which was previously unknown. He created a new system of values. Currently, the world is going through yet another technological hype, and trust me, somewhere, some Steinitz is quietly building the system which is not only compatible to everything that exists today, but it's also meeting the objective metrics, is structurally solid and has structural integrity, and provides sustainable competitive advantage. So Steinitz redefined the rules, and then the next champion looked at that and said, okay, if the game is now perfect, what do I do to make my opponent imperfect? Emanuel Lasker has reigned the world of chess for 27 years. He mastered the art of psychological gameplay. He did not play the board only. He also played the player. He realized that every strategy can collapse if the person behind that is vulnerable to psychological and emotional strain. So, 27 years as the world champion, Lasker used to pick his opponents, pick the timing, pick the conditions of the world champion title matches, so that he had the most favorable chances of coming out as the winner. For 27 years, he has manipulated his opponents and stayed on the top of the game. He simply said, used to choose his battles. Just like in the business, right? If you actually go over and compete in all markets, across all the product selection, and compete with every competitor, you're gonna stretch too thin, and you're gonna spread your resources too thin, basically, to be successful. So that would be a sure recipe for failure. Emanuel Lasker picked his opponents for 27 years, but there was one person who he avoided picking, and so during this 27 reign, during the last 6-7 years of that, there was one person in the world who was widely accepted as the best player, and only in 1921, Lasker actually accepted his challenge. My personal favorite in the list, Jose Raul Capablanca, who actually beat Lasker in 1921 and became the world champion, was known for his simple style, extreme clarity of play, and most importantly, his visualization of the end game. He would visualize a favorable end game and then just skim through the opening and middle game so that he gets that end game that he knows how to win. In Stephen Covey's words, I'm sure most of you have read the traits of the highly successful people or highly effective people. He used to begin with the end in mind. Capablanca used this technique for 6 years to stay on the top of the world. And his style was actually the culmination of the chess school of thought before him, where every grandmaster knew that the game is supposed to be simplified, the game is supposed to avoid the complexity, and both opponents basically were in silent agreement with that. Then came Alexander Alekhine. who actually went the completely opposite direction. He embraced complexity. He beat Capablanca in his own game by simply avoiding to go to the end game. He kept the pieces on the board. He actually stayed in the middle game and used the complexity to beat his opponents. Alekhine is widely accepted as the first super grandmaster of the history. He not only brought new dimensions to the game, but he also stayed on the top up until 1946, when he actually died. To this date, Alekhine is the only chess world champion who has died holding the title. After Alexander Alekhine passed away, the world of the chess actually united. The World Chess Organization was incorporated, which is mostly known by its French abbreviation, FIDE. And FIDE organized the new round-robin tournament to reveal the new world chess champion. And that was Mikhail Botvinnik, the first Soviet grandmaster, the first person basically to popularize chess in the Soviets, and the patriarch, so-called patriarch of the Soviet chess. He actually started an era which of Soviet and Russian chess domination in the world, which spanned almost 50 years after him. Mikhail Botvinnik was the first person who actually brought science into chess. And what is science? Science is the scientific method of analysis, method of self-analyzing his games or the games of his opponents and actually improving his own game in that. And this is the lesson that we can actually derive from Botvinnik, right? The businesses should actually learn from what's going on. The businesses should systemize success. Businesses and individuals as well have a tendency to only learn from mistakes, but it's extremely important to analyze your successes as well and learn from them. That way, the business can actually come to a reproducible recipe of success, of what works in this given environment, given time frame, and so on. Botvinnik was able to actually regain the title twice after losing it. That's highlighting how his style and continuous improvement was helping him to get back time and time again. Eventually, in 1963, Botvinnik lost the title to Armenian Soviet Grandmaster Tigran Petrosyan. Petrosyan was known for his defensive style. He was actually nicknamed Iron Tiger, if you didn't know, because he was basically impossible to beat. Petrosyan's approach was that he would never attack until his defense was secure, until he felt safe in his own area of the board, right? And he's the father of chess prophylaxis. Translating to business term, prophylaxis on the surface is very similar to risk management. But in fact, it's deeper than that. If we oversimplify risk management as the preemptive actions of handling the threats that you actually face as a company, prophylaxis goes deeper and it also addresses the weaknesses before those become threats or before those make you vulnerable for the threats that come from outside. Petrosyan held the title for 6 years, and eventually he lost to probably the only person he could lose given his defensive style, the universal grandmaster Boris Spassky. Spassky, as I mentioned, was known for his universal style. He's probably the only one in this list who doesn't have a distinct approach to chess. He was strong in everything. He could attack, he could defend, he could play openings well, he had very good endgame preparation. He was everywhere, and it was really tough to compete against him. Spassky epitomizes evolution theory. He adapted his opponent on the flight. This is actually a good example of an ambidextrous organization. An organization that can actually run its core business and innovate or create new capabilities at the same time. In fact, Boris Spassky is probably the one person in this list that deserves some sympathy, because he was the one who actually handed over the Soviet dominance over to American Bobby Fischer. Enter Robert James Fischer, who beat Boris Spassky for the world title in 1972. Fischer was the only exception, the only stain in the Soviet dominance, which started with Botvinnik and lasted up until early 2000s. Fischer blamed the Soviets in rigging, colluding, and basically controlling the game so that only Soviet grandmasters get on top. And Fischer, his lesson from that was he actually perfected his gameplay so that he doesn't lose any point, any half point unnecessarily. He perfected his execution. He achieved total excellence in his gameplay. Fischer was known for his ability to convert dead draw positions to won positions. He would first create a micro weakness with his opponent, and then relentlessly try to exploit that weakness, making that weakness bigger and bigger and bigger until a dead draw position was becoming a win for him. Fischer convincingly beat Spassky to become the world chess champion. And at that point, he actually stopped playing. 3 years after this, when he was supposed to meet Anatoly Karpov for the world chess champion title, he didn't even show up. So Anatoly Karpov was announced automatically as the next chess champion. This is actually the potential clash between Karpov and Fischer, and people who have actually been deep into chess would probably agree with me, is probably the clash, the best clash that never was. Because stylistically, these opponents would make a real fireworks, quite honestly. Karpov's style is usually described as that of a boa constrictor, boa meaning the snake. What he would do actually is slowly play the minor advantages that he could gain around the board, up until the moment when those minor advantages actually accumulated into something he could actually use. And then he exploded the position, and he won the game. People mostly described him like winning dead draw positions, which never were dead draw, because he knew what he was doing. So Karpov's lesson to us is to accumulate marginal gains. Every business, unless leading the market, can actually stay competitive by accumulating and compounding on those small, safe and sound advantages that they build along the way. Karpov totally dominated the chess world for 10 years, up until 1985, when Garry Kasparov came knocking, so to speak. Between themselves, Kasparov and Karpov played 6 world championship matches. So much was the double dominance of these two. The clash of these two was actually described as the biggest clash of two titans across all of the sports. Kasparov's style was dynamic, but it's not what I actually want to highlight here. Many of you know that mid-1990s, Kasparov started a series of matches against emerging machines. In 1996, he actually was able to beat Deep Blue, IBM's flagship chess engine. And then 1 year later, he actually lost. That was the first time when a chess machine was able to beat the top human. And that was the turning point. Kasparov didn't dramatize the moment. He didn't call for end of chess. He simply devised what we are currently repeating time and time again. We need to adopt technology to evolve. It's not AI replacing humans. It's humans with AI replacing humans. And Kasparov was probably one of the first people, like in the dawn of 21st century, to speak loudly about that. Kasparov kept the title and dominated the space up until 2006, when he was still world's #1 over FIDE ratings. And he actually stayed world's #1 in FIDE ratings long after that. He beat several opponents for the world chess title, and then he surprisingly lost to Vladimir Kramnik. Vladimir Kramnik was a prominent grandmaster. Nobody expected he would beat Kasparov. But Kramnik came very prepared to the match. He actually had analyzed the openings which Kasparov used to crush his opponents, and he didn't deviate from those. He simply nullified the strengths of his opponent. One of the variations that Kramnik used to actually turn Kasparov's winning positions into dead draw positions, which is still considered to be dead draw on the top level right now, was later called Berlin Wall. This is again something that can be applied to the business. For me, the parallel of this in the business world is what Netflix did to Blockbuster. If you read about that story, Blockbuster was actually thriving by collecting late fees from people who were essentially late returning the video cassettes and CDs that they actually rented. And Netflix's first step was they started charging $0 for late returns. And suddenly everyone was using Netflix, not Blockbuster. So turning a strong side of the opponent into a weakness and nullifying the advantage is basically the lesson here. Kramnik stayed on top until 2007, when he actually lost the title to Indian wizard Vishy Anand, who was not only known for the speed of his gameplay over the board, but he was also known for the speed of getting prepared for matches. In many matches that Anand has won, he was surprised initially by some novelties by his opponents, but then he quickly came back and used the same weapon against those people. He did that by recruiting a large team of seconds and trainers who were constantly scanning the chess world for novelties and some interesting new moves in the openings and so on. So literally in a couple of weeks, Anand was prepared to play them. Anand was prepared to refute them. And that was his strength over there. He used speed to differentiate himself from the rest of the pack. I think this applies very well to the modern era business. New things come up every day. Some of those are simple fad. Some of those actually have some merit. Some of those are hidden gems. And the companies who are able to actually capitalize on the novelties, on the worthy novelties, are those companies which actually get on top. Think Instagram. How fast they actually capitalized on the Facebook's trend of actually posting photos and watching those photos on mobile. Anand eventually lost the title to the guy who still is #1 today, not the world champion, but still the best chess player, Magnus Carlsen. Not much to talk about Carlsen because he is widely considered as the best chess player who has ever lived. Carlsen has utilized technology to its maximum to get his opening and endgame preparation to essentially machine-like levels. Carlsen beat several opponents when he was a world champion. He did that convincingly, he did that not so convincingly. But at the end of the day, in 2023, Carlsen announced that he's stepping down from the World Chess Champion title. He's actually handing over his crown because chess has become a contest of preparation teams rather than the clash of the titans around the board. Yesterday, I was in a panel about M&A, and one of my co-panelists, Alex, gave this advice to everyone. Don't be greedy. When a buyer comes knocking, consider your chances. Sell out when the time is right. Sell out when the price is highest. And Carlsen did just that. He refused to get into the red ocean. He refused to downgrade his own level. He refused to play with the books and with computers. He's still competing on Rapid and Blitz, but not on Classical. So, this was basically the lessons that I think all of us can learn from each world champion or each world chess champion. These people have shaped the game, the most noble game, in my humble opinion, that humanity has ever come up with. And I really think, I would really like to take some questions. But I don't know, I think the greatness of these people cannot be questioned.
Indeed. Arsen, let me first of all be very straightforward and tell, I think this is amazing. Seriously, this is not an advertisement, that INECO finances this conference and at the same time provides its employees an opportunity to also come up with their wisdom, sharing the wisdom. This is something great that we today hear, and also closer to the end of the whole event, DigiTec itself. First of all, thank you very much for sharing your passion. This is the history, this is the passion and the strategic approaches, how the way that you distinguish them and delivered them to us and within this topic. I think this was an amazing correlation. I think we can give another good round of applause to this wonderful approach to chess, history and the current tendencies and the strategic approaches of each of these grandmasters. Are there any questions here to address to Arsen? I was almost sure about this just because it sounded more like a lecture which we didn't want to finish, to be honest. It was so interesting. I was realizing from year to year you're getting closer to us, 21st century, but this was such a lovely approach. Arsen, what would be probably your last message that you would convey, or which is probably the... it's hard to tell the best strategy, but the strategy you would follow. Because we have the photos, but other than these photos, each of them holds some strategies. Some of them are similar to each other, but also have specificity.
There are some which are closer to my heart.
Go ahead.
Like, for example, I tend to consider myself a cautious person, and in that regard, Petrosyan's prophylaxis is pretty close to my heart. I also think that starting with the end in mind is really extremely important. So the second referral would be to Capablanca. Amen. Yeah, that would be
Capablanca and
Tigran Petrosyan. I think it's with the end in mind and be cautious, whatever you.
That's such an interesting approach. Inecobank is very lucky to have a CTO who has these two strategies combined within one. Bravo, and once again, thank you very much for delivering this wonderful speech.